Chosen one, that quiet disturbance in your spirit, it's not anxiety, it's mercy. God loves you too much to let you enter a path that will cost you your peace. He corrects before you collapse. This isn't rejection. It is an invitation to come closer to his best. And I know, it doesn't feel like mercy. It feels like confusion, like something was finally starting to make sense, and then suddenly it didn't. Doors you were so sure about closed. Opportunities slipped through your hands. Conversations changed. Plans unraveled. And now you're sitting there wondering, what did I do wrong? But what if the question isn't what you did wrong? What if the interruption is exactly what went right? Because not every no is a denial. Not every delay is a punishment. Some of them are protection in disguise. There are paths that look perfect from where you stand, but carry consequences you cannot yet see. There are doors that feel right emotionally, but lead to silent chaos spiritually. And when you belong to God, He won't always explain, but He will intervene. That tension you feel, that hesitation you can't shake, it might not be fear. It might be divine correction, gently pulling you away before something breaks you. And let's be honest, this part doesn't feel like mercy at all. It feels like loss, because you didn't walk into that situation carelessly. You thought about it, you prayed about it, you even felt a sense of peace in the beginning. It made sense to you. It felt aligned with who you were becoming. So when everything started to shift, when things slowly or suddenly fell apart, it didn't just confuse you, it unsettled something deep inside you. Now you're left trying to understand how something that once felt so right could end up feeling so wrong. You go back in your mind, replaying moments, conversations, decisions. You start asking yourself questions that slowly turn into doubts. Maybe I moved too fast. Maybe I misread the signs. Maybe I'm the reason this didn't work. And beneath all of that, there's a quieter, heavier thought forming. The kind you don't even want to say out loud. Maybe I'm just not meant for the things I hope for. That's the weight of it. Not just what you lost, but what it starts to make you believe about yourself. Because this wasn't something small to you. It mattered. It carried expectation, meaning, maybe even a sense of direction. And now, instead of clarity, you're sitting with disappointment that has no clear explanation. Other people might look at your situation and call it a minor setback, something temporary, something replaceable. But they don't feel what you feel. They don't carry what you carry. To you, it wasn't just an opportunity or a connection. It was something you were beginning to build your hope around. And when that gets interrupted, it can feel deeply personal. It can feel like rejection, like being overlooked or quietly pushed aside. You're trying to trust God, but if you're honest, part of you feels like something was taken from you without warning. And that tension between faith and confusion is exhausting. You want to believe there's a reason, but right now, all you can see is what didn't happen. But here is something you need to hear, even if it's hard to accept in this moment. Your pain is real, but your interpretation might not be complete. What feels like something being removed from your life might actually be something being preserved within you. Your peace, your clarity, your sense of direction. These things matter more than a moment that looked promising on the surface. There are situations that feel right emotionally, but carry consequences you cannot yet recognize. There are paths that seem good in the short term, but slowly create confusion, pressure, or instability over time. And sometimes, before you get too far into something that would be harder to walk away from later, God steps in and disrupts it early. Not because He wants to hurt you, but because He refuses to let you settle into something that would eventually harm you. That doesn't mean this moment won't hurt. It does. But it also means the story isn't what it seems right now. Because what feels like rejection may actually be redirection happening at the exact moment you needed it, even if you don't understand it yet. What if the very thing you're calling a setback is actually a rescue you didn't recognize? I know that's hard to accept, especially when all you can see is what you lost. But your perspective is limited to what's in front of you, while God's perspective stretches far beyond the moment you're standing in. You're looking at the door that closed. He's looking at the path it would have led you down. You're feeling the disappointment of something ending. He's already seen the weight it would have placed on your future. And the truth is, not everything that feels right is aligned. Not everything that opens easily is meant to be entered. Sometimes the most dangerous paths are the ones that feel the most natural at first, because they don't immediately show you the cost. They reveal it slowly, over time, when you're already invested, already attached, already too deep to walk away without pain. So instead of letting you get to that point, he interrupts it early. Not to confuse you, but to spare you. Think about it. There are things you wanted months or even years ago that, if they had worked out, would have placed you in situations you're no longer built to carry. There are people you thought you needed who would have drained parts of you that you've since learned to protect. There are environments that looked like opportunity but would have quietly reshaped you into someone you were never meant to become. But at the time, you couldn't see that. All you could see was potential. And that's the tension. Because potential can be deceiving. It shows you what something could be, but it hides what it will cost to get there. And God, in His mercy, doesn't just respond to your desire. He responds to your destiny. He's not just concerned with what you want right now. He's protecting who you are becoming in the long run. So when something is removed, delayed, or disrupted, it's not always a sign that you were wrong to hope. It's often a sign that there was more to the story than you were aware of. Something beneath the surface that didn't align with where your life is meant to go. And here's where the shift begins. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" try asking, "What might this be saving me from?" Because that question opens a different kind of awareness. It moves you out of self-blame and into trust. It allows you to consider that there are outcomes you didn't experience, problems you didn't have to face, pain you didn't have to carry. Not because you avoided them on your own, but because you were guided away before they could reach you. You didn't fail. You were redirected. You weren't blocked because you weren't enough. You were blocked because that path wasn't meant to carry who you are becoming. And I know part of you still wishes it worked out. That's natural. You're human. You felt something, you believed in something, and it didn't unfold the way you expected. But just because something felt meaningful doesn't mean it was meant to remain. Some experiences are meant to pass through your life, not stay in it. They teach you, stretch you, reveal things to you, but they are not your final destination. So instead of holding on to what ended as proof that something is wrong with you, start seeing it as evidence that something is working for you, even if you don't fully understand it yet. Because one day, you won't just look back and say, "That didn't work out." You'll say, "That could have gone so differently, and I'm grateful it didn't." And that shift, from confusion to clarity, begins the moment you stop seeing correction as rejection and start recognizing it as protection guided by a wisdom greater than your current view. At some point, this stops being about what happened and starts becoming about who you believe you are because of it. Because if you're not careful, moments like this will try to rewrite your identity. They'll whisper things that feel true in the moment, but are completely misaligned with who you actually are. They'll make you question your worth, your judgment, even your connection with God. You'll start to internalize the experience, turning a closed door into a personal label. I'm not enough. I always get it wrong. Things never work out for me. But that's the real danger, not the door that closed, but the meaning you attach to it. Because once you believe those thoughts, you don't just feel disappointed, you start shrinking. You hesitate more. You trust yourself less. You approach the next opportunity, already expecting it to fail. And without realizing it, you begin living from a place of quiet defeat instead of grounded confidence. That's why this moment matters so much. Because you have a choice. Not about what already happened, but about how you define yourself moving forward. You can see yourself as someone who keeps getting rejected, or you can begin to see yourself as someone who is being guided. You can believe that life is closing in on you, or you can recognize that God is narrowing your path on purpose. Because not everyone is redirected like this. Some people are allowed to walk all the way into situations that slowly drain them, confuse them, and disconnect them from who they're meant to be. They don't feel resistance early. They feel it later, when it's harder to leave, when more damage has been done, when more time has been lost. But you feel it sooner. You notice the shift earlier. You sense when something is off, even when it looks right on the outside. And that's not weakness. That's sensitivity. That's awareness. That's alignment trying to protect you. You're not being punished, you're being refined. There is a version of you that God is shaping, and that version cannot be built in just any environment, with just any person, or through just any opportunity. It requires alignment. It requires timing. It requires conditions that support not just your success, but your peace, your integrity, your growth. And anything that threatens that will not be allowed to stay, even if you want it, even if it looks good, even if it almost works. Because your life is not random. Your path is not accidental. And your setbacks are not signs of failure. They are signs of filtration. Things are being filtered out of your life, not because you're lacking, but because you're becoming more specific, more intentional, more aligned with something greater than what you can currently see. So instead of asking, why does this keep happening to me? Begin asking, what kind of person am I becoming through this? Because that question shifts your focus from loss to transformation. It reminds you that you are not stuck, you are being shaped, that you are not behind, you are being prepared, that you are not rejected, you are being redirected with precision. And the more you lean into that identity, the less shaken you become by closed doors. Not because they stop affecting you, but because they stop defining you. You no longer see them as proof that something is wrong. You see them as confirmation that something deeper is at work. You begin to trust differently. You move differently. You stop chasing every opportunity and start discerning which ones actually align with who you are becoming. And that's when your life starts to change, not just externally, but internally. Because you're no longer operating from fear of loss. You're operating from clarity of identity. And when you know who you are, you don't need every door to open. You only need the right ones. Because the right ones won't just give you access. They will support the person you were always meant to become. So how does this actually work in real life? Because it's one thing to hear that God is correcting you. It's another thing to recognize it while it's happening. And most of the time, it doesn't come in a loud, obvious way. There's no announcement, no clear explanation. It shows up quietly, subtly, through disruption, discomfort, and a kind of inner resistance you can't fully explain. You could be moving forward with something that looks completely right on the surface, and yet something inside you feels unsettled. Not panicked, not chaotic, but uneasy, like a quiet signal saying, "Slow down, this isn't it." That's where many people get it wrong. They assume that any discomfort must be fear, and anything that feels easy must be right. So they push past that inner resistance, thinking they just need to be braver, more decisive, more confident. But not all discomfort is fear. Some discomfort is discernment. Fear is loud, urgent, and overwhelming. It pushes you into panic, into overthinking, into imagining worst-case scenarios. But divine correction feels different. It's quieter. It's consistent. It doesn't rush you. It restrains you. It doesn't confuse you. It gently unsettles you until you pay attention. It's that moment when something seems right logically, but your spirit won't fully agree. It's when doors don't just close, they resist opening no matter how hard you try. It's when conversations feel slightly off, timing never aligns, or things keep getting delayed in ways that don't make sense. And instead of flowing, everything feels forced. That's a signal, because what is meant for you may require effort, but it won't require you to abandon your peace to hold on to it. Correction often shows up as interruption, plans shifting at the last minute, opportunities that looked certain suddenly disappearing, people changing their minds, paths that seemed clear becoming complicated overnight. And in those moments, your instinct might be to fight it, to fix it, to control it, to make it work. But sometimes, the more you try to force something, the heavier it feels. That weight isn't random. It's resistance for a reason. Because God doesn't just guide you through clarity. He also guides you through restriction. He'll allow what aligns to flow, and what doesn't to strain. Not to frustrate you, but to reveal something you can't yet see. And the more sensitive you become to this, the more you start to notice patterns. You begin to realize that every time you ignored that inner hesitation, things became more complicated, more draining, more confusing. But when you listened, when you paused, stepped back, or walked away, you preserved something within yourself. Your clarity, your peace, your direction. Learning to recognize this is a process. It requires you to slow down, to stop overriding your inner signals, to stop assuming that urgency equals alignment. Because not everything that moves fast is meant to last. And not everything that slows you down is meant to stop you. Some things slow you down to protect you. So instead of asking, "How do I make this work?" start asking, "Why does this feel forced?" Instead of trying to open every door, start paying attention to which ones open with peace, and which ones demand you to struggle just to stay inside. Because the goal isn't just to move forward. It's to move forward in the right direction. And sometimes, the most loving guidance you'll ever receive doesn't push you ahead. It quietly pulls you back. And over time, if you pay attention, you'll start to notice something patterns begin to form. At first, it just feels like random interruptions. A delay here, a closed door there, something not quite working the way you expected. But then it happens again, and again, and again. The same kind of situation, the same kind of resistance, the same quiet feeling that something isn't fully right. That repetition is not coincidence. It's confirmation. Because when God is trying to get your attention, He doesn't always say more. He often repeats more. Not to frustrate you, but to make sure you don't miss what matters. And the more something is blocked, redirected, or slowed down, the more you have to ask yourself, is this resistance, or is this protection? Another sign is what happens after you let go. Not immediately, but gradually. At first, there might be disappointment, even silence. But then something shifts internally. The pressure you didn't fully notice before begins to lift. Your thoughts become clearer. That constant tension in your chest starts to ease. And slowly, a different kind of peace replaces the urgency you were holding on to. That peace is not accidental. It's alignment returning. Because what is truly meant for you doesn't require you to stay in a state of confusion to keep it. It doesn't demand that you constantly question yourself just to maintain it. When something is right, there is effort, but there is also stability. There is movement, but there is also clarity. And then, almost unexpectedly, new doors begin to open. Not forced, not chased, but aligned. Opportunities appear that don't require you to compromise your values. Connections feel natural instead of draining. Timing starts to make sense instead of constantly working against you. And what once felt like loss begins to reveal itself as space. Space that was necessary for something better to enter. That's when it clicks. Not everything that left was meant to stay. Not everything that didn't work was meant to succeed. Some things had to fall apart, so your life could come together in a way that actually supports who you are becoming. And the more you recognize these signs, the less you panic when things don't go as planned. Because you start to trust that even in the disruption, there is direction. So maybe it's time to stop calling it rejection and start calling it what it really is: protection. Not everything that leaves your life is a loss. Not every closed door is something you were meant to walk through. And not every interruption is there to delay you. Some are there to preserve you. You don't have to understand everything right now to trust that something deeper is happening. You don't have to force clarity where God is asking for surrender. Because the same God who closed that door sees the road ahead more clearly than you ever could. And if He stepped in, if He disrupted it, if He didn't let it fully work out, then maybe it's not because you weren't ready. Maybe it's because it wasn't right. For your peace, for your future, for the person you are becoming. So instead of holding on to what didn't happen, try releasing it fully, honestly. Not because it didn't matter, but because you trust that what is meant for you won't require you to lose yourself to keep it. If this message spoke to you, take a moment and reflect. Where in your life have you been trying to force something that keeps resisting? And what would it look like to finally let it go? Share your thoughts in the comments. Someone else might be in that exact moment right now, needing the clarity you just found. And if you're ready to keep walking this path with deeper trust, stay connected. Because this isn't the end of your story. It's the moment it starts aligning.